Hey, what's going on, guys? OJ back here with another video. And in honor of Reiner De Ridder, who's fighting in the main event this weekend, we're here to talk about some goofy goobers, Some of the goofiest fighters you will ever see if you tune into this week, as well as any other pay per view or fight night event that's going to happen within the next few weeks. We got some goofy goobers out here that we need to talk about. So in a few seconds, I'll have a set of tiers for you guys with a couple of fighters in each tier, ranking on how goofy they are. All right, some of them are incredibly goofy, while whereas others are complete NPCs. So yeah, without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. All right, for the first fighter, we're gonna start off with Juliana Pena. Everybody knows how goofy she can look in her title fights. Like she literally goes in, with her eyes closed, throwing windmill punches, and somehow won a UFC championship belt. Now you can call that fraudulent because she then proceeded to lose to Amanda Nunes 50-43. She won back the title via robbery decision, and then got absolutely blasted by Kayla Harrison. Uh, Again, it's not that she's bad, but she's very goofy. Like you just watch her compared to like her typical opposition, and sometimes you wonder, like, can I beat Juliana Pena in the fight? Like that is very delusional to say. She is a professional mixed martial artist, but I don't know, when you watch Juliana Pena, it don't look too different from the street brawls that you would see on Twitter. So overall, Juliana Pena, she is a former champion and she's had a lot of success in her UFC career, but she is a very goofy goober in my opinion. All right, next up we got Reiner De Ridder, who is the inspiration to this video. Simply put, Reiner De Ridder, he's goofy as fuck. All right, goofy boy over here. Uh, his grappling's actually really good though, which is why I'm not gonna put him in the goofiest of goobers over here. But it's his striking, and yeah, I know he body need Bo Nickel for a TKO, but when they were in on the feet and Reiner De Ridder was trying to throw punches to close the distance, I don't know, he just looked incredibly goofy over there. And let's not forget the fact that he went life or death with GM3 on the feet. Now, I understand that Reiner De Ridder won the fight, and he submitted GM3, which is really impressive, which proves that his grappling's like elite level. But at the same time, you can't be getting dropped by GM3 of all people. All right, I'm just gonna say that. Like, I love GM3. His striking and his striking defense isn't exactly the best. So I'm gonna say that Reiner De Ridder, he's very gritty, and it's a very effective style for him. However, sometimes when he's on the feet, he just looks incredibly goofy, in my opinion. All right, next up, we got Dricus Du Plessis, the OG Reiner De Ridder here. Reiner De Ridder on the come up right now. People are talking about how Reiner De Ridder has the goofy plot armor, how he's just going to goof his way into a title shot. People are forgetting that Dricus Du Plessis literally paved the way for Reiner De Ridder to use the same storyline. Dutch kickboxer, using his goofy style in order to get a possible title shot against Robert Whitaker. Like Robert Whitaker's looked at as like the much better fighter going into their fight. And then somehow Reiner De Ridder will win via falling anvil or something like that. All right. We've already seen this plot line with Dricus Du Plessis not that long ago. However, the reason I'm not gonna put Dricus that high up in the goofy goobers is because it's actually very effective. Like there is a method to his madness, and he's actually defended his belt quite a few times, so you can't really clown it that hard when it's working for him. Like he has what? A defense against Sean Strickland, Israel Adesanya, and then another defense against Sean Strickland. So I think Dricus Du Plessis, like even though he like windmill punches and then like teaches his friends like Cameron Simon just to, like charge in with their eyes closed during the 1-2s like Juliana Pena, it's effective for at least Dricus. So even though Dricus is incredibly goofy, I'm gonna say it's effective because he's a multiple time defending champion. All right, now up next to someone who has goofy moments, we have Jailton Almeida. Now, Jailton Almeida typically is pretty boring. All right, I'm just gonna say it like, yes, can he be like the fat man strangler where he just finds the back of every fat man he fights and then like chokes them out with a rear naked choke in like 30 seconds? Yes, that does happen. But when he fights someone who actually kind of knows what they're doing on the ground, that's when Jailton Almeida looks like a boring fuck because he literally refuses to ground and pound. He literally refuses to push a pace. He just stays in mount until the heavyweight decides to give up their back. All right, which is actually no, it's pretty common, but still, Hilton Almeida is not the guy who forces things unless you're a fat guy who never trains jujitsu and you just give up your back for free. That being said, Jailton Almeida, sometimes he looks incredibly goofy, right? When he's failing takedowns against Curtis Blades, all right? Curtis Blades is defending the single leg up against the cage, and there's Jailton Almeida, rather than just disengaging, rather than trying to switch to a double leg, rather than doing anything, he's just holding onto a single leg and just asking to get ground and pounded. All right. I think that's incredibly goofy. Now, he has looked much improved. I think Jailton Almeida is now coming off a TKO win against Sergey Spivak, where he showed his like boxing combinations all of a sudden. And I'm not gonna lie, they look pretty clean. But I can't forget the fact that the second Jailton Almeida fights someone who actually knows what they're doing on the ground, he can look very goofy. So, although Jailton Almeida typically isn't a goofball, he can be goofy depending on the matchup. Now, up next, we got someone who I would consider a complete NPC when it comes to fighting. That's Patricio Pitbull. All right. Now, I'm just saying this because his last two fights in the UFC were completely terrible. Like Patricio Pitbull, I've never seen him like really engage in any offense willingly whatsoever. Like even when he's down in rounds and it's like, oh, you need to finish. Patricio Pitbull is just like, ole, 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 ole. He's just like standing still, like like reading what the opponent's reacting to, or like he's like trying to build his feints in, and before you know it, the fight's over. All right, Patricio Pitbull, he just kind of stands there asking to be a punching bag sometimes, especially if the opponent's taller than him, which is like almost everybody, like Yair Rodriguez. And that's the weird thing. He didn't really shoot takedowns against Yair. He did it against Dan Ige, but once he was able to establish dominant position on the ground, he proceeded to just hold the position, doing nothing. All right. Maybe it's because he doesn't know as much on the ground. Maybe it's because of something else, like maybe Dan Ige was defending well. Personally, I just looked at it as Patricio Pitbull doesn't really try to push a pace. And it's kind of frustrating because I think if he actually lets his hands go, and if he actually looks for like not even submissions, like dominant positions, he can be fun to watch. But because he has actual talent, Patricio Pitbull, complete NPC, and he should be sent back to the PFL or Bellator at this point. All right, now moving on, we got Robert Valentin. Now, many of you guys probably don't know who he is, but he fought last week, again in the Dustin Poirier card. And Robert Valentin, simply put, is an incredibly goofy goober. You know, he's w- uh, taunting a Gautier to basically flatline him in the first round, right? And then he goes up against Torres Finney, who's like 5'8" in the middleweight division, and he's like looking for jumping elbows, right? This dude is incredibly goofy. Simply put, he's not good, which is why I think he's part of the goofiest of all goobers over here. And although he's like very fun, like he has a very wild personality, and I did hope at one point that he can actually win a couple of fights so that can he can actually be kind of a marquee name. But it's just clear that Robert Valentin isn't UFC level because there's no like sense of fundamentals in him. He just spams buttons hoping it works out for him. And unfortunately, it hasn't worked out for him so far because so far he got submitted by Ryan Loader. He lost the boring decision against Torres Finney, and then he got knocked out by Ateba Gautier in the first round. I genuinely be surprised if Robert Valentin is still in the UFC after this. Maybe they keep him around just to be like another can, but yeah, he's an incredibly goofy goober, and although he's fun to watch, he is just not good. All right, now moving on, we got another goofy boy over here. We got Brendan Allen. This guy will trade chrome for chrome with you in the autism battle. Brendan Allen, he's actually good when he's not being dumb. The problem is, half the time, he's being dumb, right? Now, he looked good against Marvin Vettori. He didn't just try to face plant into the canvas, shooting dumbass single legs like what he typically does against Nasruddin Imavov or Anthony Hernandez. But I'd say that Brendan Allen, he when he looks good and like he's not looking to like just crotch sniff in order to win, like he can actually look like a very effective fighter. It's just half the time he's just doing dumb shit like throwing a head kick into a back take or attempting a back take. Like I don't understand why Brendan Allen does these things, but that's why Brendan Allen is looked at as a dumb fighter and a goofy fighter at that. Again, he's a lot better than the people up on this tier, and he's not as goofy as the people on this tier, but he can be very goofy, especially when he's dumb, and that's like what half the time he fights. So yeah, I'd say Brendan Allen, simply put, is a goofy boy. All right, now up next we got Merab Dvalishvili. Similar to Dricus Du Plessis, Merab Dvalishvili, he's not nearly as like goofy as DDP, but he kind of wins via goofy ways, just emoting half the time. Like that's like what, a fourth of his arsenal, which is like just to throw a bunch of emotes at his opponent as their opponents like are like gasping for air because Merab just pushes an insane pace. He'll like mock people in the middle of like grappling transitions. It's like it's clear that he's like dominant, but like he'll like do stuff like kissing Sean O'Malley behind the back. Like he'll hold a guillotine choke in front of Zuckerberg and not really go for it, but just to hold it in against Henry Cejudo, just to like make a clip out of it. He'll throw Henry Cejudo like a sack of potatoes. Like Merab Dvalishvili is an OG clip farmer, and hey, it's effective for Merab Dvalishvili. Now, again, Marab, you can look at it as like he's not really a technical fighter. He's a very goofy fighter at times, especially when he's just emoting. But it's effective, and he's won a bunch of fights because of his taunting and his ability to push a pace. So while you can say that Marab is goofy at times, it's a very effective fight style, and I rate Marab Dvalishvili because of that. All right, now up next we got Nikita Krylov. Now Nikita Krylov hasn't really fought within like the last 3 years outside of just getting knocked out by Dominic Reyes. But when he does fight, sometimes he looks incredibly slick, like when he fought Ryan Spann and just like sinking in a nice triangle off his back. But then other times he'll look like a complete goofy goober with his chin up in the air, swinging big meaty hooks in order to try to find a knockout. All right. Sometimes if Nikita Krylov doesn't look to grapple, he just looks like a absolute marauder, and it can be goofy at times, especially when Nikita Krylov just hangs his chin up in the air. And the only time he got knocked out, however, was against Dominic Reyes. So I guess it kind of works out for him because a bunch of power punchers in the light heavyweight division tried to knock him out before, but never really found success. So yeah, Nikita Krylov, I'd say he's like he can be goofy at times, but I think he's also very good at like finishing people. So even though he can look goofy prior to like the finishing sequence, like I think the goofiness quickly dissipates once he finds a finishing sequence because I'd say Nikita Krylov is one of the best finishers in the light heavyweight division. All right, now up next we got another complete NPC in Patchy Mix. Now I'm just putting Patchy Mix here because his performance against Mario Bautista very much disappointed me. Like I know in Bellator he looked like really good. Like he actually looks like he can throw power shots, and his grappling transitions are actually really nice. However, Patchy Mix in the UFC so far has just looked like a complete NPC, a complete punching bag to be more specific. Like I call Patricio Pitbull a punching bag. But at least he's trying to throw combinations together from time to time. Like he did drop Yair Rodriguez in the third round at one point, and he did drop Dan Ige in the second round in their fight. But Hachi Mix, he so far he literally hasn't done anything in his fights. All right, Mario Bautista just worked in like new combinations against him. Like Mario Bautista looked at Patchy Mix and went, "Oh, I can practice this combo and I can practice that combo." Like it was just 25 minutes of Mario Bautista getting a workout session. So Patchy Mix, I'm just putting you on here because I don't know, you were supposed to be like a goofy marauder, but instead you look like a complete flat NPC that just shattered my hopes and expectations of watching Mario Bautista get choked or knocked out. So yeah, Patchy Mix, I'm gonna put you in the complete NPC tier because of you how you looked against Mario Bautista. All right, now up next we got Marvin Vettori, one of the goofiest goobers of the OG era. Like this guy really went to a title shot with only a 1-2 and a leg kick. All right, Marvin Vettori in the past like 5, 6, 7 years has not changed anything about his game. All he does is throw a jab, a cross, and a leg kick. Truly generational stuff. Somehow was able to get a title fight against Israel Adesanya in 2020, and unfortunately, like Marvin Vettori, outside of the 1-2, he just looks completely goofy. Like he throws leg kicks and body kicks, but they don't really have any steam. He just looks like he's throwing them because he learned it off like some YouTube video, like well, I don't know, a couple of hours before he fought. And everything else he does, like he doesn't really do anything exceptionally well. Like when he's clinching up against the fence, he just looks like he's like just desperately trying to hold someone, and he just looks like a goofy goober when the opponent just doesn't allow Marvin Vettori to spam 1-2s every few seconds or so. So yeah, Marvin Vettori, I kind of feel bad picking on him right now. He did come off that loss against Brendan Allen, but I gotta be honest. I just think that Marvin Vettori is the goofiest of goobers in the middleweight division. All right, now up next we got Roman Dolidze. I think Roman Dolidze, simply put, is a goofy boy over here. Now, Roman Dolidze, unlike Merab Dvalishvili, has some more variety, which is crazy to say because instead of the 1-2, Roman Dolidze can throw a hook. All right, that's literally it. It's not like Roman Dolidze really shoots takedowns all that well. Like he does try to shoot, it's just that he looks not that good whenever he does. And Roman Dolidze, like he'll throw like a shitty back kick, and he'll throw like a bunch of punches with his eyes closed against Nasruddin Mavov. Now he has a 3-fight win streak somehow, so I'm not gonna be that critical of him. But I'd say he's like pretty similar to Marvin Vettori, except he has a little bit more variety, and I think he has a little bit more of a plan, but depending on where the fight takes place. Like, I understand that Roman Dolidze, his ground game's really good, but he rarely uses it. Like, off the top of my head, the only time he's been able to use it effectively was against Jack Hermanson because Roman Dolidze threw up a calf slicer, which, like, nobody in the UFC knows what that is. But out on the feet, Roman Dolidze is a goofy ass motherfucker. All right, now up next, we got someone who's also goofy but effective, Gene Silva. Now, Gene Silva, like, he's incredibly good, right? That's the only reason I'm going to put him on this tier, but he is incredibly goofy. Barking in the middle of the cage prior to getting his name called out, just taunting people, using emotes in order to clip farm. Uh, he's just like crying about how he's like so happy to be in the cage and just doing some weird shit. All right, it's fun. I think it's very crazy. I think he's very technical to watch, but he can be a goofy boy. He can be a goofy goober at times, but it's effective to how he fights. So as much as I think Gene Silva can be goofy, it's very effective in my opinion. All right, now up next we got Joanderson Brito. Now, Joanderson Brito, typically you look at him as more of a marauder than a goofy goober, but when Joanderson Brito isn't landing his like big, meaty, swinging hooks, or he's not getting the takedown and all that, I think Joanderson Brito can look very goofy at times. Like, how many times have you seen Joanderson Brito in the later rounds, especially where he's like kind of gassed out? And like he's trying to swing his big meaty hooks like he did in the first round, but he's just like windmilling these punches eventually. All right. I think Joanderson Brito, he's very good. He is very aggressive, but if you are able to survive in the third round against Joanderson Brito, I think that Joanderson Brito, simply put, can look goofy at times because I don't think he's fundamentally as good as most of the people you would expect within the featherweight division. All right, doesn't mean that he's bad. He just looks goofy sometimes whenever he's striking in the later rounds or when he's trying to wrestle somebody. All right, now up next, we got someone who's also a complete NPC, Martin Buday. He's fighting this weekend on this card with Reiner De Ridder. And let me just say this, Martin Buday, like, this guy lost to 44-year-old Andrei Arlovsky and won that fight via robbery decision, where he just held Andrei Arlovsky up against the cage whenever he had success. And Andrei Arlovsky was somehow outstriking Martin Buday in their fight. So yeah, Martin Buday, you are a complete NPC blob in my opinion. And although you are number 13 ranked in the heavyweight division, let's be real, nobody really believes that because it's heavyweight division and half of you guys shouldn't be ranked in the heavyweight division in the first place. All right, now up next we got Johnny Walker. Another OG to the Goofy Goober gang. Johnny Walker is not necessarily that he's just very funny at times. Like he dislocates his shoulder in the middle of his celebration. Like this guy just made a highlight reel of him getting knocked out in the goofiest of manners, right? So I think that alone allows Johnny Walker to be put amongst the goofiest goobers in the UFC. I know Johnny Walker's a lot better than some of the guys on this list, but Johnny Walker, simply put, he is very goofy. Zhang Mingyang will probably KO him, and Johnny Walker now, especially his chin is cooked. He'll probably keep getting knocked out in the most goofy manners possible. All right, now moving on, we got Jiri Prochazka, goofy boy over here. Another goofy boy from the 2020s. And simply put, Jiri Prochazka in his prime was one of the goofiest goobers you will ever find in the UFC. But now that he got knocked out by Alex Pereira, I think Jiri Prochazka is actually looking to improve his overall game. He started adding slips into his punches. He started actually moving his head in general. He started actually gauging distance better. I think Yuri Prohaska is now trying to work on the fundamentals of his game. Like he can still look goofy at times, with his hands down as he gets pummeled in the face. But I think Yuri Prohaska, he is a goofy boy, but he's just no longer the goofiest of all goobers. All right, now up next we got Vinicius Oliveira, who just fought on the Dustin Poirier card. Vinicius Oliveira, if you didn't watch this fight with Said Nurmagomedov and Kyler Phillips, simply put, Oliveira is a goofy goober, having his hands down at all times, just marauding forward, just plotting in, and just trying to knock his opponent out every few seconds whenever he tries to, throw overhand left or right. All right, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Like, Vinicius Oliveira's made it effective in the bantamweight division, which is surprising. But you can't deny that Vinicius Oliveira, simply put, is a goofy goober who is literally trying to make clip farms on the regular basis. So yeah, Vinicius Oliveira, it's effective, but I can't deny it. He is a goofy goober. All right, now up next, we got someone who's goofy at moments, Shamil the Blob Gaziev. I know he's looked a lot better. Like he knocked out Thomas Peterson in the first round. He actually looks better in shape and all that stuff. But in his fight with Jairzinho Rosenstrike, I've never seen a fighter literally quit on the stool because he almost died of cardiac arrest. Like that takes some real special goofy goobers to pull off. And although Shamil Gaziev has much improved since that fight, I just can't forget that fight because it was like a little over 2 years ago, or maybe a little over a year ago. Either way, Shamil Gaziev, he's looking better, but at the same time, I would be lying to you if I didn't call him a goofy goober at moments. All right, now up next we got Daniel Zellhuber, a complete NPC. Simply put, this guy went against Michael Johnson on the Dustin Poirier card, and all he did was throw body kicks and head kicks for 3 rounds straight. Right, even when he was supposed to try to pick up the pace because Eric Nix is in the corner, like, yo, you gotta move, man, you gotta get the finish because we're basically down 2 rounds. Daniel Zellhuber went. The best I could do here is just throw more body kicks and occasional oblique kick. Outside of that, Daniel Zellhuber did absolutely jack shit. He just got tagged up on the feet, and he just tried to like throw head kicks and body kicks in order to tire out the arms of Michael Johnson. Unfortunately, Michael Johnson is actually well experienced, and that shit don't work against Michael Johnson. So yeah, Daniel Zellhuber, he just he's just a complete NPC. He just fights like a complete NPC. Like he fights based on the best tactic, but doesn't really understand the best tactic at times. So yeah, Daniel Zellhuber, I don't really want to watch you fight, and you're a complete NPC. All right, now up next we got Benoit Saint Denis. Absolute goofy goober over here. Like this guy literally went almost into a title elimination bout, just maraud maxing and keeping his hands down and moving his head like a fucking Jeju statue, and then somehow going like, "Oh, I'm top 13, I guess." Yeah, Benoit Saint Denis. He's not elite level, but he is fun to watch because A, he's a marauder, and B, he's a goofy goober. I love when Benoit Santini just has his hands down and just like trying to maraud his way into the fight because most of the shots that he tanks, like he can withstand and not get knocked out. It's just when he also gets knocked out as well, like in the Dustin Poirier fight. Like Benoit Santini's just like dropped badly, like I shouldn't be making fun of this, but it looked pretty goofy in my opinion. So I'm gonna say that Benoit Saint-Denis, like he's just a goofy goober. I don't think Benoit Saint-Denis can really change that. I do think Benoit Saint-Denis can still make a name for himself, but at this point, I think more people know about it because, simply put, he's a goofy goober. All right, now up next we got Volter Walker. Goofy boy over here. Like I understand that Volter Walker does have the heel hook game where like he's the heel heavyweight heel hook strangler. Like this guy literally won 3 fights in a row, all based on different variations of the heel hook. However, I'm not gonna ignore the rest of Volter Walker's game because Volter Walker, outside of his heel hook, is a complete goofy goober. Like he literally tried to shoot for a takedown, and that takedown was like head first into the canvas, all right, against Kennedy Nzechukwu. So Walter Walker, I understand that he's good, but I think he's a complete goofy goober because I don't know, just everything else but the heel looks are just look goofy in my opinion. All right, now up next we got Sean Strickland. Like this guy won a belt in the UFC middleweight division. Now he does look incredibly goofy, where he's just going in his Philly shell, sometimes like just going like this. At times, like he'll just pop the jab only. Like he fights more like an NPC to be honest. But I don't know. He just looks very goofy in my opinion. Like especially when he's like trying to like carry everything with his hands. And I just find that very amusing because Sean Strickland, I don't know, he just kind of proved that like you don't need the best of techniques to win in the middleweight division. But I still think he's fun to watch at times. All right. And I think he's a very goofy goober. So Sean Strickland, he did win a belt though, so I gotta say it's effective, but it is a pretty goofy style in general. All right, now up next we got Sean Woodson. Now Sean Woodson, I wouldn't really consider him a goofy goober. He fights more like an NPC. But Sean Woodson, it's because of his frame. Like he's 6 feet 3 inches tall in the featherweight division, and he just does all these like weird ass feints because he's 6 feet 3 inches tall and with like an 82-inch reach. Nobody can really like cleanly outstruck strike this guy. So a lot of the time you'll see Sean Woodson just going around like just throwing a bunch of kung fu moves out of nowhere and just trying to hope he wins a fight off that. So yeah, I still think he's good, but he is a goofy goober. So yeah, we can't ignore the fact that Sean Woodson is a goofy goober at times. All right, now last but not least, we got another complete NPC, Jai Herbert. Now, Jai Herbert, a lot of you might know him as the guy who almost knocked out Ilya Taporia, but outside of that, he just looks like a complete NPC. He just kind of feints at range, doesn't really throw that many strikes. He's just kind of there just to kind of be a test for a lot of the young prospects in the lightweight division. And outside of that, Jai Herbert's out here just like tapping a low kick, like jab low kick. There's nothing really exciting about Jai Herbert in my opinion. Like he really knows how to stink up a fight sometimes, and like Jai Herbert is just not the ideal goofy goober you would want in my opinion. Because simply put, I've never seen this guy really go out aggressively. I've never really seen this guy try to finish a fight effectively. I know he again head kicked Ilya Taporia. Outside of that, it's rarely happened. So yeah, Jai Herbert. I know he was the closest guy to beat Ilya Taporia, but unfortunately, we gotta call a spade a spade. He's a complete NPC at times when he's fighting. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. Leave a comment down below what you guys think about this tier list, and also leave a comment down below if I missed any fighter that you would consider an absolute goofy goober. But yeah, other than that, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm gonna be talking about a bunch of matchups the UFC announced uh earlier to earlier today because Dana White basically blessed us for the month of October. And yeah, I'll talk about that tomorrow. But until then, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.